Testing. All right, we're all good to go then.
Just to verify, can someone on the Twitch say if you could hear Dominic real quick?
I'll log on to the Twitch if no one's verifying and check.
Yeah, we're good.
We good?
Yep. All right, let's get started.
All right, that sounds good. 1 second. All right, great. All right, hello everybody. Thank you for joining the presentation today. I'm really excited to talk to everybody as CDO. I've taken part in workshops in the past. Last year I was pretty involved and attended a lot of your guys' meetings. So it's always good quality stuff, and hopefully I can provide something similar today. So as you can see on the screen, today I'm going to discuss an overview of what active defense is for the aspiring cyber analyst. So won't go too deep into different techniques and what you can do, but just for everybody out there, all of you are trying to become cybersecurity analysts or get into the cybersecurity field. This is a good primer for you to understand what active defense is, what it means for you at your future job, and what you can do to become, quote unquote, dangerous in the field. All right. So with that, so who is this guy? Who am I? So my experience, I'm a current MBA and MS student in cybersecurity. So I'm part of the new MS program. I graduated UAlbany with my undergrad in 2016. And before that, after that, I started with PricewaterhouseCoopers as a cybersecurity strategy consultant. I had clients such as Michael Kors, JP Morgan Chase, a bunch of other ones. And I really helped them put together their cybersecurity strategy. I did a little bit of third-party risk management. And after spending about a year there, I decided I wanted to get deeper into the technical side of cybersecurity. So I started as a cybersecurity analyst in the cybersecurity engineering department at Condé Nast. For those who don't know, Condé Nast is a publisher of magazines. I am not this guy right here. I'm not him. I'm this guy. But we do Condé Nast did publish Vogue, Vanity Fair, The New Yorker, etc. They have a bunch of magazines, and pretty much my job was to ensure that their sensitive information was kept safe. We implemented tons of cybersecurity controls, evaluated the cybersecurity program and what it offered to Condé Nast. So it was a really interesting role. Learned a lot. We actually deployed Splunk. I know a lot of you have been using Splunk, but we deployed an instance across multiple locations. So that was a great learning experience. But after about, I would say, 3.5 years down in the city, working a lot, I decided that I wanted to follow my dream of becoming a security researcher, scholar, and professor. So came back for my MBA, MS degree. And this upcoming year, I'll be starting my PhD at Albany, focusing on active defense, hopefully for my dissertation, working with MITRE. So UAlbany, and I'll get into this in a little bit, but UAlbany currently has a project with MITRE, who does the attack framework. We're building a relationship with them to bolster active defense, create new techniques in active defense, and evaluate the industry as it stands. So those are some of my ambitions. And lastly, my hobbies. I like mountain biking. I mountain bike a lot, as you can see on the picture. And then hiking, of course. And as Tyler knows, me and him collect Pokemon cards. So put that there as well. All right. So what is active defense and what does it mean for the future of cybersecurity? So the current paradigm is one where defenders are always catching up. Like there's always new vulnerabilities, new 0 days that attackers are using, and defenders are made to keep up with the intelligence, keep up with what's going on, and and implement controls that protect against the new 0 days that are coming out. If you're a major organization, you are the target of those 0 days. And if a attacker or an APT decides to deploy a 0 day against you, there's really nothing you can do except for detect that 0 day and get them out of your environment as fast as possible. But as you guys know, to get a APT out of your environment is extremely difficult and oftentimes takes more than one shot. So how do we stop this? Like, how do we make sure that, you know, APTs can't get into our critical infrastructure, and what can we do to be proactive instead of reactive, which is the current paradigm, setting up controls and waiting for an adversary to get into our network and get past our controls. So that's where active defense comes in. It provides a standpoint for defending an organization's assets before the attacker gets in. Active defense includes deception, setting up honeypots, which are pretty much they mentioned it in Mr. Robot. It's a computer that looks like has interesting or valuable or sensitive information that an attacker would want to get, and it's made vulnerable. But there's increased monitoring around this device. And not only that, but the sensitive information isn't actually real. So it's fake information, and it's made to get an attacker to trigger the honeypot, and then the defender can quickly implement defenses to get them out of the network. So another thing that has been mentioned is the hackback capability. So there has been instances in the past of organizations, and especially the government and military. Active defense started in the military realm, but hacking back at your adversary, shutting down their systems, doing a denial service on their infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. We'll talk about how that's kind of being pushed away right now in the active defense community, and what kind of laws and regulations are coming out around that. So any questions so far on active defense and what it means? I've been in it a long time, so I might not be explaining something very clearly for everybody that's new. Any questions so far?
If anyone in the Twitch chat wants to ask any questions, feel free, and I will relay them over too. Just throwing that out there.
Cool. So I'll keep on going, and if there's any questions, Tyler, just interrupt me. Or if anybody else has any questions, just interrupt and we can talk about them. I think we have a pretty small group today, so I'll just talk, and if anybody has any questions, just let me know. All right, so what are some current trends in active defense? So active defense is a relatively new industry. Honeypots have always been around. Deception has always been around. I think it was mentioned in The Art of War. I mean, deception and active defense as a way of defense has been around since the dawn of time. But now the cybersecurity industry is starting to formalize an area to understand what active defense really means for the cybersecurity industry. So there's three ways that this is really happening now. So vendors have been catching on to what deception can really do for clients, and so they've been developing tool sets around this. Ativo Networks and Smokescreen are two of them. They publish tons of white papers, so definitely check out their websites. So you can learn tons about what they do and what they offer, as well as just more about active defense and deception. And just to be clear, deception and active defense are usually used interchangeably. And what these vendors are really adding, so why can't you just deploy an open source honeypot? You can, but these vendors, what they're really doing is they're adding scalability and legitimacy to deception. So I spoke before how you can add documents that look like sensitive information, maybe an Excel spreadsheet that's labeled salaries or something similar, or social security numbers, where inside there's really no social security numbers. These companies have a way of deploying these types of documents quickly, efficiently, without taking up storage space all the time, persistently. So they'll deploy them as soon as a box is triggered. They'll immediately populate it with documents and interesting looking stuff for the attacker. In addition, they use the cloud to make it scalable. So they'll use instances where they'll trigger more boxes to be created if it seems like there's an attacker probing the network. This allows organizations to not always have all these honeypots running on their environment, wasting resources. So they offer bigger organizations ways of doing active defense, but there's tons of other ways as well. There's formalization of active defense techniques. MITRE has taken the big the reins in this area. They've created the SHIELD framework. Definitely recommend you guys look it up. There's tons of techniques and tactics, just like in the attack framework, on how defenders can use blue teaming to defend against an adversary using active defense. So very educational. This is what UAlbany is using as the crux of their research right now. And they've actually mapped it to adversary groups. So you can, when you get a job as a cybersecurity analyst and you work for, say, a manufacturing company, you know which adversaries target manufacturing companies, and therefore you can find out which adversaries you want to defend against and what techniques you want to use. Lastly, laws and regulations are starting to come out to protect end users against companies using active defense. So active defense is really utilized by more advanced organizations, and they'll do things such as hackbacks or denial of services on the attacker's infrastructure. And if you guys know anything about attackers' infrastructure, it includes a lot of botnets. So it'll include my laptop as part of their infrastructure. So if Google does a denial of service on an APT, they might shut down my laptop as part of that. So we really have to be careful and responsible when doing active defense. The Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, which is pretty famous among the red teaming community, outlines that you really can't affect or access another person's machine. And then they're coming out with the Active Cyber Defense Certainty Act, which is ACDC. And this law should really add some more robust language around active defense. I would encourage you to look that law up. There's a lot of discourse happening right now around whether it's good or bad for active defense, and if it really captures what active defense means. So there's tons of information out there on that law, and it's pretty interesting. So, all right. So I mentioned MITRE SHIELD. What is it? It's a framework for the future of cybersecurity and implementing active defense. There's several different tactic categories similar to attack. If you all have used that, we have channeling your adversary, so making them go a certain way, collecting information on your adversary, containing your adversary in a certain area, detecting your adversary, disrupting your adversary's actions, facilitating a type of action from your adversary, collect, then head them back toward collecting and channeling, legitimizing your decoys. So like I said, adding documents to your decoys, and then testing your network and testing the decoy network you've created. So
we
there's
do have
tons.
a question in the chat.
Yeah, what is it?
Someone asked, are those tools that you mentioned that add machines as they go deployed mainly on the cloud technology?
Yeah, so it's mainly cloud. So it'll be on their end. So the vendor will set up a network, right, that they manage through AWS or Azure or any other cloud provider, and then you gain access to a part of their network through software as a service. So on the back end, they can scale up and scale down as you need for your organization. So if you're in the middle of an attack and APT is really trying to hammer your network, all of a sudden you can scale up with 1,000 decoys that are within your environment that adversaries can try to avoid, but most likely they'll trigger them, and that'll allow you to either get them out or collect information to get them out in the future. So I think that answers that. If you have any follow-up questions, let me know. So MITRE Shield really starts to formalize active defense and what kind of techniques. All of these have plenty of information around them, so I encourage you to go to the MITRE Shield website and check out all these techniques, what they do, what you can do, what you can implement on your side and learn about within a VM. We'll actually be going through a lab later on one of these techniques. So these are some of the techniques. I'll go into one of these. Decoy system, just to highlight, is the honeypot. So that's what MITRE calls a honeypot. You have decoy account, which is actually creating like an admin account that looks like it has access to a bunch of things. But if somebody signs into this admin account, that it's a hacker and they're trying to gain access or increase their credentials and their privileges within your network. So that's where this comes in. Burn-in is another name for adding those sensitive documents, those attractive documents to your network. And then user training is really interesting because all of training your employees is really important. But you can actually use traditional controls such as user training to increase your active defense posture. You can train employees to stay vigilant against attacks. Test them with simulated phishing attacks. These are ways of doing active defense that utilizes an older control and revamps it. There's tons of that within Shield. So even an organization that thinks they need to buy all this technology really doesn't. They just need to pivot the way that they're using their current controls to defend their network better. All right, so just to go in a little bit around what UAlbany is doing, this is actually our timeline for this semester. Tyler's involved in this project, and we've been having a lot of fun. We've been creating implementation guides for the different techniques. So we'll dive into, decoy system and look at the different procedures and details within it and expand upon them and add tools and open source tools and processes that organizations can implement. Like I said, the active defense industry is really new. So actually developing implementation guides, understanding, what does this sentence even mean? Well, I'm looking at this process that a technique outlines. What does it mean, and how can I how can I implement it in my environment? Our implementation guides are adding more detail around that. So we're working with MITRE on this, and it's a really cool project so far. So this is really how I got into active defense and learned about it. All right, so resources. If you want to learn more, get into active defense and see what else is out there, there's tons of places that you can go. So first, ADHD, or the Active Defense Harbinger distribution, is it's a VM that you can download, and it has all the customary active defense tool sets. It's like Kali, but for active defense. So I definitely, if you're into this and you want to get into the more technical side, definitely recommend you download that VM. It comes from Black Hills InfoSec, which is the company of John Strand. He's kind of like he's the top dog in active defense, so you'll see him everywhere. He owns Black Hills Security. He created the Active Defense Harbinger distribution, and he wrote the main, I would say, like the Bible on active defense, which is the art of active defense, offensive countermeasures. It's pretty cheap on Amazon if you want to pick it up for some summer reading on the beach. Definitely, again, check out MITRE Shield. And then Wild West Hacking Fest is, again, deployed by John Strand, but it is a bunch of usually free training that you can gain access to, where John Strand runs the training and teaches you how to use different tool sets within ADHD. He teaches you about the laws and regulations and how they're affecting the cybersecurity industry. So this is a great training platform that has a bunch of free quality training for people such as ourselves, such as students. And then Active Countermeasures is similar. It's like a sister website to the Wild West Hacking Fest. So definitely check out that for some tool sets. They have some paid for stuff as well, but they do have free things. So these are some good resources that if you want to dive deeper and learn more, check out these. All right, so recommendations. As cybersecurity analysts, what do you guys want to do when you get your first job? You won't be in active defense or like neck deep into it like me, but what do you need to know in order to move forward, and how can you think of what should you be thinking about when you're doing your job? So as always, practice, and then practice some more. Utilize VMs, look at ADHD, take trainings, play around with tool sets. Active defense is very technical, so you want to know that you have the abilities to deploy honeypots without putting your organization at risk. So always practice on test environments. If you have a boss that says, oh, let's just deploy a honeypot, we've never done that before, but we should do it. Maybe that's an opportunity for you to recommend that maybe testing would be better before you deploy it. So that's one. Learn both red teaming and blue teaming. And I know a lot of people are like, I'm a red teamer, I'm a blue teamer. Do both. Learn what both do so you can, if you're a blue teamer, you can know what the red team is going to do. And if you're a red teamer, you know how the blue team is going to defend against what you do. So learn both, become more holistic in your knowledge. Always look at a cybersecurity problem, proposed solution, or existing architecture from the adversary's perspective. So if you're in a company and you're deploying a new tool or solving a problem, think about it from the adversary's perspective. Think about how they can get around this news control that you're putting in place, or how it might not work, or think about how you would hack it. And this would give you a perspective that's really invaluable and is at the heart of active defense. A lot of people in the industry don't have this, and it would really set you apart. A lot of people talk about this, but I want to reiterate, follow cybersecurity intelligence. When you're having your morning coffee, listen to a podcast on cybersecurity, know what's going on. Cybersecurity intelligence is a big part of active defense, so it's important that you know the new 0 days that are coming out, or the new ways that attackers are getting into networks. I'd also like to say that don't just focus on like what IPs to block and what domains the attackers are using. Focus on the overall aspects. This is a change in the cybersecurity paradigm, right? Like I'm trying to think of an example where you have more people using BEC, right? BEC, business email compromise, has been going up over the years. As a cybersecurity analyst, I know that I need to find the solution to that because more people are doing BEC. It doesn't really matter where they're coming from or what they're using to do BEC, but really what you want to do is know BEC is prevalent and understand that it's a risk for your organization and implement tools and detection processes to protect against BEC. And lastly, remember the cyber landscape is a new war zone and everyone is a target. War used to be just military against a military. Now it's all about affecting the resources of an organization. So if Russia wants to attack us, they're going to go for a big bank. They're not going to go for the military all the time. So if you get a job at a big bank and you think, well, we're not going to get attacked, or even a smaller company, we're not going to get attacked by a big APT. You most likely are, because it's an easier way for them to affect the United States resources. So think of yourself as in a war zone. You're a soldier. You're protecting your company against real threats. So that is the end of my presentation. Any questions from any of you guys?
Again,
I had a quick question. Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead, Tyler.
You can please just ask in the Twitch chat too, and I will relay. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, yeah, you're good. So, I know you had mentioned that you and Tyler were working on some like active defense like projects for UAlbany, but do you know if there are any like controls or practices regarding to active defense that we're employing right now? Like in UAlbany's environment? Yeah, if you know.
No, I actually don't know. I spoke to Marty. Part of the project was to interview individuals in the field and that utilize active defense. And we did speak to Marty Manjak, who is the ex CISO for the university. And he said that he actually utilized some decoy servers, some honeypots within the network. So yeah, the university was using like decoy systems and honeypots. Again, they weren't necessarily taking a holistic active defense approach, but they were starting to, like a lot of organizations, they'll take one technique and implement it, or another and implement it. But it's not. They're not doing it holistically.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? If not, definitely feel free to contact me. My email is dfoti at albany.edu. Tyler can probably post it in the chat or something. Feel free to reach out. Always like to talk to students and like to talk about my research and this area. I think it's important that us as a new generation start to go in this direction instead of using old methodologies such as NIST or ISO. Those are old and everybody knows about them. If you know about them, the adversary knows about them. So honestly, they're pretty ineffective. And this is where something like this comes in. This will actually protect against an organization, an adversary, and it will actually be effective instead of deploying ISO and think you're fine, or deploying NIST and thinking you're fine. It's just a Band-Aid over the real problem, and utilizing something like this actually makes a difference. So with that, if there's no more questions, we can conclude the presentation.
All right, everyone in the Twitch chat, I think we're going to be moving over to the Discord now for the hands-on portion. Please join on the Twitch and the workshop chat, and I'll see you there. Thanks, everyone.